Jai Prabhuji. Hello and welcome to the Retroprogressive Yoga Institute. My name is Radha Devi and I am a monastic disciple of the Ramakrishnananda Order. Here in this institute with my spiritual brothers and sisters, we are exploring and deepening into the different writings, books and video conferences of Prabhuji. And we have the blessed opportunity to explore the book Kundalini Yoga, The Power is in You. This is the book for whoever didn't see it. We are pretty advanced in our course. This is already the 5th center, which is the Vishuddha Chakra. So I like to recommend that if you're interested in this beautiful path of the Kundalini, to go to the previous classes. They are going to enrich you and provide you more context in regards to this whole path, but each class individually is also providing a value in itself. And more than watching the classes, I recommend to get the book if you don't have it yet. It's going to become one of those books that you can call a life companion. They can be with you in different stages of your life. So as I just mentioned, we are in the Vishuddha Chakra. This is the 2nd class on the series of this center. And in our previous class, we start to familiarize ourselves with what is this center about. First, we saw the fact that this is the first one in this group of higher chakras. We have in this group first the Vishuddha, then the Anya, and then the Sahasrara. And because we saw in the previous center, the Anahata, that it's like a bridge. We have the gross centers, which are the Muladhara, the Swadhisthana, the Manipura. Our previous chakra was the Anahata, which is a bridge between these two dimensions. And now this is the first one. So we are going to notice how things are more subtle. We are even going to review certain terms or concepts that we saw in the past, but from another perspective. In the previous class, we understood how deep connected is this center to the communication. This was mainly the skill, if we can call it like this, that this center is about. If we saw that the Manipura was about power, if the Anahata is about love, then this one will be communication. There is also creativity, and we saw it in our previous class how both the Swadhisthana and this one are also very linked to creativity, but communication is the one that outstands the most. And for that reason, we took one paragraph of the book and we deepened into what is communication. We saw that the requirements for communication are a receptor, the person that is emitting the message is itself, and the channel where this message is going to pass through. And if one of those is not working properly, then the communication is impossible. This is the word that is used to describe. So we see how there are different things that are needed in order for communication to be successful, and only if one of them is not in this equation, then communication is not even possible. And we also understood, because of the communication itself, how important is the receptivity. One of the things that I liked the most from the previous class was this story that we share in regards to it has different names, the story, the empty cup or the full cup or the teacup. And from that story, we understood the importance of letting go of our attachments or of making space in allowing ourselves to be empty, that the shunyata, that empty term and concept that is so important in the Buddhism, we understood more the importance of being with open hands, allowing something else to penetrate us in this so important phenomenon that we spoke throughout our classes. Like we had small glimpse in different of our classes in regards to the phenomenon of master disciple, and we refer to it in different occasions because we have always put a lot of emphasis how it is important that if you want to go in this path, if you want to transit in this path, then you need the guidance of a spiritual master, of an enlightened being. This is a very sophisticated system and it needs guidance because there is a lot of harm that can be done if you don't have the tools necessary in order to go through it. So continuing with that, we spoke about, one of the things that we spoke about in regards to receptivity was about listening and how important it is in order to receive and to actually develop that quality of receptiveness that is so important for a disciple. And in general, when we want to communicate, we understood how we usually tend to fall in the role of the one that is emitting the message instead of the receiver. So it is very important to cultivate both aspects, not only the one that is giving the message, but also the one that is receiving. And then we went to the receptivity. We understood how listening is so important. We saw that this is the first step in the retroprogressive path. And we gave different keys if we would like to cultivate this specific capability that is in all of us. If we put certain interest, then we can definitely develop it. So what I want us to do is to continue from there, to continue developing this class. And I'm bringing something that it is written in the Ishavasya Upanishad, commented by Prabhuji, in regards to listening. And from there, we're going to continue with our class. This is the Ishavasya Upanishad, if you didn't see it yet. And we are going to the mantra number 10. As usual, I always mention which mantra, obviously which book, because then if someone is interested, you can know where we're taking it from. And it's also important for me to bring in which context. So I'm going to read which mantra is and why it is explained what we have here. The mantra says, I have listened from the sages that different results are obtained from the cultivation of knowledge and the cultivation of ignorance. So to whoever doesn't have the book or didn't read it, in the commentaries, Prabhuji is exploring even different parts of the mantra itself. So in the following, the commentary starts exploring the following phrase from that mantra, which is, I have listened from the sages that ... So I want us to read the commentary of that part and bear with me, and we will see how much insight and how much this can enrich what we just learned in our previous class. And not only in our previous class, like we've been building all this course and we've been exploring different qualities, capabilities, skills that are needed in order to transit this path. And this is going to enrich all the things that we've been learning and, of course, this class. The Sanskrit term shushruma means I have listened in the aorist verb form, derived from the root shru, which means to listen. The Upanishadic sages do not teach borrowed theology, but share their own realizations. Again, the Upanishadic sages do not teach borrowed theology, but share their own realizations. Instead of repeating the words of their masters by saying, "The sages said," they preface these receptive experiences with, "I have listened from the sages." And I don't know if you notice how I emphasize certain words. It's going to be important after when we can start commenting about it. What others think belongs to them and is unrelated to us. Only what we have listened to and assimilated is ours. What we listen to is digested until it becomes part of our own reality. The truth that the Vedantic sages share are not repeated information. They do not preach stale words that someone else said about someone who experienced something. Instead, they generously share silences that they listened to and assimilated at the feet of their masters and discovered as their own. They do not repeat what was said by others many years ago, but they engage us in what they themselves grasped, drank, assimilated, digested, and realized, living in the shadow of the presence of their masters. And now, there is also a very important part where he's explaining us what is the difference, or what are the differences between hearing and listening. Listening and hearing are two different actions. We can hear without the intention of listening, while listening means paying attention. Unlike hearing, the action of listening is voluntary, intentional, and conscious. When we hear, our auditory system detects pressure variations caused by the propagation of sound waves in the air and transforms them into electrical impulses. This information is then transmitted to our brain. We hear noises and listen to what is being said to us. If we listen to our neighbors arguing, we are eavesdropping. Otherwise, we only hear them fighting. It is like a speaker who asks someone in the back row if they could hear, to which he replies, "I listened very carefully, but unfortunately, I couldn't hear you very well." And for me, this specific sentence clarifies, and I can almost visualize this person saying it's very much giving us the clear difference between hearing and listening. And then it says, the disciple's life is centered on listening to the master. The follower hears, the disciple listens. The difference has to do with quality. What we hear does not affect our daily life and does not change us, but what we assimilate and digest transforms us in a radical way. What we listen to is in accordance with what we are capable of living, while what we hear is only information. When there are sounds, but you are not present, you hear, you do not listen. Although many have heard the words of sages, few have listened to them. Those who have heard them will only declaim recycled truth and may even give highly informative lectures and courses. But those who have listened will share the master's presence and soul. The great disciple who wrote this verse does not refer to the teachings of his masters, but to the fact that he was able to listen. To be an academic student, it is enough to hear, but to enter into discipleship, it is essential to learn to listen. Anyone who hears is capable of storing enough information and then repeat it in examinations and tests. However, only the listener perceives the spirit that is behind the wisdom. Only a true disciple can listen to the presence of silence. Here we have different keys in order to allow this listening to happen. And more than allowing it to actually listen, we saw how the difference between hearing and listening. Hearing, it's more in regards to the sound or the noises that are around us, but in order to listen, we actually need to pay attention. And lately, Prabhuji was referring to listening and explaining exactly this with my humble understanding, that in order to listen, we need to pay attention. And we also saw it in the book, and we explain about it in different of our classes, how this paying attention is reducing the noise that can be around. And while I'm doing this, I also want to emphasize that many times we're speaking about noises, and in this occasion and also in our previous class when we were speaking about mental noise, and we're going to continue speaking about it later in the class. Then when we pay attention to something, this is removing this mental noise that we've been speaking about through many of our classes. So here we see this difference that many times we also bring up between the student. Here it says an academic student and a disciple, a follower and a disciple. And we see how here we bring the difference between hearing, that it's a student, follower, and then we have the disciple, which listen, and how it's expressed by this disciple that wrote this mantra, and how much is needed if we want to walk through this path. And then continuing with this, what I want us to do is to read again the paragraph that we took in order to develop our previous class, and we are going to take it from there to continue with this one. It is impossible to hear clearly if there is a lot of noise around us. Similarly, in order to perceive clearly what is said to us, inner silence is essential. Our mental noise, which is the product of a mind agitated by desires, does not allow us to listen the message attentively. Meditation is not a technique or method, but pure receptivity. So, in our previous class, we explored this term of receptivity. They were referring to meditation of pure receptivity. And what I want us to do now is to focus more on what are those obstacles for that pure receptivity, keep building the conditions in order for meditation to happen, as we many times share and explain the fact that meditation happens is a blessing, is a gift from the sky, from divine, and not something that we can actually do, but we can prepare the conditions for it to happen. And this is what we're doing with the path of the Kundalini yoga. So, and now we spoke about very interesting term, which is our mental noise, which is the product of our mental noise, which is the product of a mind agitated by desires, does not allow us to listen to the message attentively. So we see here, or we heard here, to listen to the message attentively. A few of the things that we mentioned when we just read in regards to hearing and listening, and how that attention is so important. So it says that the mind agitated by desires. So this is one of the obstacles to cultivate this receptivity, the desires. the agitation of the mind, this mental noise, comes from the desires. The desire, we explore it in our first class on the Swadhisthana chakra, because we saw how that center is so related to pleasure, seeking of pleasure, desire, the sexuality, the creativity. And in that class, we explain and we explore what the desire is. We brought this beautiful, also from the Ishavasya Upanishad, where it is explained in regards to the desire. We explored from the book itself, Kundalini, and we also saw from the Tantra. So I'm going to make a small summary, but I really recommend going to that class if you want to learn or you're interested in the topic of the desire. We're going to continue from there. In that class, we saw one of the most important things that I want to emphasize, which is the fact that we don't want to repress the desire. Many times there is a negative connotation towards it, but something that we've learned for whoever is going throughout this course with us is the fact that we never want to use a repressive attitude or have a negative attitude towards something. We've learned how rejecting something or condemning something, it's going to cause certain contraction, a certain neuroticism towards that thing, or it can atrophiate the thing itself. I like very much this example that sometimes Prabhuji uses in regards to even muscles. When we don't use them, they atrophiate, and then we need therapy, we need different things in order for that muscle or that articulation joint starts to work again. So it's the same in our internal world. We have the desire, it's a very potent force, and we don't want to repress it. We also speak about the vow of ahimsa, non-violence. We don't want to be controlling or violent with different things that are, I can say, inherent in us. But the direction, the guidance, or the invitation is to observe, to explore, to understand. And the first thing that we explored in that class was in regards to Ishavasya Upanishad. It was telling us that our unlimited nature, right? Because many times we refer as what we really are, or Prabhuji refers to what we really are, and what we believe ourselves to be. So what we really are is this bliss, this ananda that we mention in many of our classes, this unlimited bliss, and what we believe ourselves to be is compressed, it's contracted in this form, in this body, inside this mind with different thoughts, all these things that were put onto us. It was not even developed from ourselves, but it was something that it was installed in us, if we can call it this way. We got educated, we received different stimulus, different information, different things from the exterior. It's not even ours. So we have that we really are in this contracted, limited form. So we always have this feeling that something is missing. I am lacking something. And because of that, we are in pursuit of different things in order to be able to return to that is unlimited. Like we have this sense, we have this perception, or I can even call it intuition, that we are something else, bigger. Not even bigger, it's what we are, infinite actually. So what happened is that then we try to cover this feeling of lacking, or we try to fulfill or try to achieve that we really are through different things. And then comes the desire that tries to satisfy. We try to satisfy this desire through different things in this world, and we found ourselves even more empty. We saw in that class that there is no condemnation, but what is viewed in a direction that is not going to serve us is the blind pursuit of pleasure, the blind pursuit of sex, the blind pursuit of different things, because this at the end is not going to give us this bliss that we actually want to achieve, this bliss that we really are, but it's going to take us even lower. Like this can become an addiction and can take many different directions. So it's telling us, don't repress it, don't condemn it, but study it, learn about it, explore it in order to understand what really is. Then comes the Tantra that is telling us the desire is a powerful force. Instead of repressing it, because there is a danger in repressing it, we've mentioned in different occasions what are the consequences of repressing something and how it can explode in different directions. So the Tantra is also telling us the desire is a very powerful force. We read in the book Tantra Liberation in the World by Prabhuji. And instead of repressing it, let's study it, let's understand it, and let's even use it in our service, for our spiritual benefit in this path towards the realization of what we really are. We can even use the desire for it. The game is that to use it in a proper way, not to repress it, to be even friendly with it in order to understand it. So the invitation is, as usual, for observation without the intermission of the mind, to understand more and to explore these things, these forces, this energy that is inherent in us as human beings. So that was the direction that we saw in that class. Now I want us to continue exploring the desire and take it also from another direction. And we have this class, this lecture is in Spanish about the desire. That's the name of it. But it's actually also transcribed in the book, What Is As It Is. This is the book. For whoever didn't see it, these are transcribed satsangs with Prabhuji. To whoever didn't know this word, satsang is meeting with the truth. This was different meetings with Prabhuji where he was sharing different topics. They are transcribed in this book, and one of them is the desire. And I recommend very much to go and read it or to listen to the lecture itself, to the satsang. And from the many things that he is telling us, I want us to focus in the chain that he's explaining in regards to jnana, icha, and kriya. Jnana, knowledge, icha, the desire, and then kriya, which is the action. He's speaking about this chain that happens. We saw it also in our class. The chain was a little bit bigger, the chain of the action, and what's the role of the desire on it. But basically, we have an experience. This experience with certain object, with certain person, is giving us a sensation. The sensation is going to be either a pleasant sensation, so that will impulse, that will create a desire to repeat it. And because of this desire, then this is like the gasoline, the gas that is going to allow that action to be performed. Or it's going to be an unpleasant experience, sensation, and it's going to cause certain fear, rejection, and then the action will be to escape from that unpleasant sensation. So we have something that is causing certain sensation in me. And this sensation is causing certain desire, and then the desire is the impulse that it's allowing certain action to happen. And in the Spanish class, I was, just to bring an example, I said like when you're a child and we have these science fairs, imagine that you won the prize and you got so much attention and everybody loved you, and you were a person that didn't receive that attention. Maybe only because of that very specific event, you become a scientist. Because of the sensation of attention that you received, then you want to repeat it, and only because of that, this very isolated event determine the path of your life. You become a scientist only because of that. And he's explaining us in many different occasions, not only in this, the difference between the real thing and a sensation of it. I am after a sensation of something, not towards the thing itself. This is actually how he finishes this satsang, when we have a desire for the real thing, this desire for love, enlightenment, and that is not actually us desiring it, but the divine, the existence searching for us. But to continue with the desire, what I want us to see is how the time, this concept of time, it's playing a very central role in the desire. Because, first of all, a desire cannot be pleased in the past. He always put this example, or he gives in many occasions this example of when you're thirsty or hungry, the bread or the water that you ate or drank a month ago cannot satisfy it. You need it now. You don't care even which type of juice they're giving you. You prefer plain water. But now, I have the desire now. So in order to be pleased, needs to be now. But it's separating when it's a sensation that it doesn't matter what they give you. If we're speaking more about something psychological, this sensation of attention, it's not going to be satisfied. Let's also divide between physical needs and also psychological needs. This is not part of the class. While I'm speaking, I'm trying also to bring this difference, and we can build another class about it, but I thought it's important, also relevant to just mention it. But what I want us to focus is in the fact that also, in order for the desire to happen, there needs to be time. I have a knowledge from the past. I saved it in my chitta, in my memory, and because of that experience, that sensation, I want to repeat it or escape from it. But there needs to be this role of the time in order for it to happen. So then what happens when we establish ourselves in the present, which there are different amazing lectures where Prabhuji is explaining so beautiful the difference, how past and future are actually time, but present is not. The present is a temporal, and why? So in the present, there cannot be desires. When we're actually here and now, the present, there are no desires. I don't have that memory of the past, that knowledge of the past, that jnana, icha, kriya, that allow this change to happen, but I am in the present, I am in the now, and the desire cannot exist in the now. The same happens with our preconceived ideas. That it was something that we mentioned very much in our previous class too, and how that's part of the noise of our mind, not only the desires. So what I want us to do is to read more what we find in the book, and we are almost towards the end of this class. In our efforts to communicate, there is interference from the mind and the past. The mind interprets and compares to what it has stored in the great storehouse of the known. It does not know how to listen, because in order to listen, it must be transformed into silence. The quality of communications will improve to the extent that we identify less with the mind. Perfect communication without the risk of misunderstandings occurs only without the mind. It only occurs between people who do not act with the mind, those who move in the now without interpretations or comparisons. A dialogue can even be established without words. A glance or silence can be tremendously communicative. Only the enlightened being, one who does not act through the instrument of the mind, can have a dialogue with the trees, flowers, stars, life, existence, or God. For this reason, communication finds its highest expression in meditation. So we see here exactly this last part that I was explaining in regards to the mind, the preconceived ideas, and how it becomes an obstacle for us to actually listen. And it says, as long as there is the tool of the mind, there cannot be real communication. And how that communication, the peak of it's meditation. So again, we see that obstacle of the mind where the desires are stored as memories, the different experiences are stored in our memory, past, and it's an interference for real communication to occur. But in someone, that enlightened being, that does not communicate through the mind, which can be established in the now, in the present, without the interference of the past experiences, then communication can actually happen, not only between persons, but it was telling us with a tree, with the stars, with the moon, with God. And it's just giving us more, I feel like there are keys. Many times Prabhuji speaks about the finger pointing to the moon. So I feel we've been sharing different fingers pointing to the moon and providing us, sharing or inviting us to a certain attitude, this retroprogressive path, which point us to the real thing. And as we see here, how the communication finds its highest peak in the meditation, to be able to listen, to have this receptivity also that we mentioned earlier in regards to meditation too. Pure receptivity is meditation, and now communication finds the highest peak in meditation. This listening, this establishing ourselves in the now, then we understand more how important and how relevant it is in our path of towards our truest self, towards what we really are, what we've been sharing so much in regards to the Kundalini Yoga. And this is only the 5th center we saw how each center is giving us something that we need to cultivate in order to actually prepare and develop all the conditions for something of the divine, if he agrees to happen, if that agrees to happen to us. This is everything for today. In our next class, we're going to be discussing more deeply in regards to specific attributes of this center. And then our last class on this series, as usual, we will speak about the balance and unbalanced functioning of this center, Vishuddha chakra. Thank you so much for joining us today. Jai Prabhuji.